Hi, I'm Nathan Outteridge, and I'm here at the A-Class Worlds in Takapuna in 2014, and just thought it's early morning before one of the races just to go through the boat that I'm using, which is a Polish boat, the Exploder, and just explain a few of the systems on the boat. There's been a lot of footage of people out sailing around foiling, and lots of comments online, especially on Sailing Anarchy and on the forums and that, about this foiling versus not foiling and the rules and all those debate. And I thought, while I've got the boat here, it'd be good just to go run through and have a look at how it all works. So come with me and I'll show you the boat. So as you can see, it's an A13 Exploder from Poland. This boat arrived about 2 weeks before the Worlds, and Jakob, who's from Poland, who designs and builds the boats, has been really helpful in installing a J-board setup. So it was a standard boat when we got here, and when we arrived he cut open the deck of the boat, and if you can see here, he's put in like this deck slider and made quite a big hole inside the boat to fit the J-board. So it's a pretty standard J-board. It's the first one that these guys have made, and it simply just slides in and goes down, and there's a rope and a cleat here, so I just cleat it off on top of the board. This rope goes all the way to the bottom of the boat to hold it down, and then it's basically as simple as having this rate control adjustment. So it's just like a 3-to-1 purchase system with a rope that goes across the boat, and I've got it set up here so I can adjust the leeward board from the windward hull. As you can see, I just pull the string, cleat it, and it just moves back and forward. And I've just got like a nice shock hold take up so I can actually pull it out to me, and I can do it from the trapeze if I need to. You normally got a bit on to adjust them while flying, but it's nice to have the option. So these boards are, I think, the first that they've made, and I'll just pull it out so you can see the shape of the board, and then we'll move to the rudders after that. But it's a simple, just rope through the hole, board comes out. And that's the shape of the foil. So it's pretty straight, a little bit of a C, and then it's quite an aggressive J at the bottom with this little winglet. And that winglet just helps you when you are up and foiling from having leeway issues. But as you can see, the foils are quite big in chord, and the hull stops about here, so that's kind of what you're foiling on in the water. And as anyone saw in the America's Cup, it takes a while to learn how to fly and be stable, and I can assure you one thing, it's a lot harder on a 75 kilo boat with trapezing. Anyway, come up towards the back. One feature I really like about this boat is it's got this little rail on the gunnel that you can stand on, and so when you're going upwind, you're on your toes out off the edge of this, and then when your calves get sore you can just take a step in. But the best bit is this little angle back here. When you're going downwind, I always found it hard to keep your front foot placed, but now you can just brace your front foot against that. You can pick either foot strap, and if the boat does fly too high or go bow down, you've got something hard to rest against. So at the rudders, these are the foiling rudders that they've made. Little winglets on the tips, and the way that they're attached is just a bolt through here, slid through the foil for strength. And this is only really the first set of foils with these winglets that the Exploder guys have made, and that could be done a lot prettier, but at the moment we're in a very crude stage of our foiling and learning in the class. So to flip them down, it's just this rod. It comes all the way down and clips in, and just like on the AC-72s, there's this rule where this outside elevator has to be inside the max beam. So these are symmetrically put on the foil so that the rudder doesn't get too loaded and worked, and ideally you might want a little bit more area than this to help flying, but as I found earlier in the week, in about 8 knots of breeze, the boat foils perfectly fine anyway. To adjust the angle of attack on this, because this is glued in and bonded, we can't adjust that, so we look at the rudder gantry, and there's 2 ways you can do it. You can flip this up and you can change the length of this rod by screwing it in, clipping it back in, and then kicking it aft. and that's a very quick and easy way to do it, but that changes the balance of the rudder. So what they've created is a way to adjust this top gantry, and if you look really close, there's a bolt here and a little slider, and the top of the board just slides back and forward on top of the rudder stock. So we're talking about 1/2 a degree difference in terms of lift is quite significant to how the boat performs. What else is there? So then, it's exactly the same on the other. I had one breakage earlier in the event, and you might have seen me sailing around with just one rudder. All that happened was, so we've got these little grommets here. There's an aluminium rivet that goes through this nylon bush, and when you clip this down, it bangs up against this fitting and stops the rudder changing angle. The aluminium rivet sheared off, so as you can see, lots of load going through these little guys, and we've just now beefed them up with monol rivets, and that shouldn't be an issue anymore, and hasn't been. So come around, and you can see how I've attached a few little of the fittings. I've got the mast rotation going around the deck and towards the back. I like how the traveller is nice and recessed into the deck, ends up with less bruises on your bum when you're sliding it out. And yeah, it's pretty simple. Apart from that, the only other changes I've really made is I've got a 12-to-1 system on the main sheet, carries plenty of load, and I think the main thing to mention now is about having to be able to put the boards in from the bottom of the boat, and the rule of the 1.5 metres between. And as you've seen, we've been sailing around all week foiling with control, but as it gets windier, with less and less control, and the boats are just inherently unstable because of the J that they're running. And I think a simple solution would be just to allow us to put the boards in from underneath, because then you can run an L, or you can run a bit of a V, and the way to get stability is to have some kind of ride height control system. And because we can't really do that with a wand and push rods, the easiest way would be to have like a wave piercing foil like we were running on the cup boats, where as you get higher the tip will come out and self-regulate. And but as you can see, with the width of the hull and what we have, it's very hard to get one of those in from the top. So I think it's a bit of a bad decision that they didn't allow us to at least have a trial period to see what we could do with some L boards in these boats, because we're doing 20 knots of boat speed foiling around on 4 boards in 12 knots of breeze, and I think there's a huge potential for the class. It's a really simple setup, and what I've also found is when sailing along, this cleat holds it down, and if you wanted to, you could rock it forward and drop it into negative and get a little bit of extra riding moment from the windward board. Or if you really wanted to, you can uncleat the board completely, whack it into positive, and the board just rises when you're sailing, and in the J position just gets wedged, so you can end up sailing with, as you can see, very little foil sticking out of the bottom. And everyone knows that the more foil you can get out of the water, the less drag you're going to have. So there's lots of development to go, and we've got 2 more days to go at the A-class Worlds, and looking pretty light for the next 2 days, sort of maybe 10 or 12 knots. So I feel with this boat that it's performing really nice in the 8 to 12 knot wind range, and I've done a lot of tuning in that range, but in the breeziest stuff, I've had some control issues and some minor breakages, so looking forward to having a good end of the event. One thing I'd say is that these boats are so much easier to sail than what they were 2 or 3 years ago. I had a DNA at the start of 2012, and it had the simple C boards with rudders without any elevators, and the moment you put those little winglets on the rudder, the boat's so much more stable in a pitch stability. And then now, the moment we have more lift with these J boards, they just seem to be a lot easier to sail. I haven't even come close to nosediving the boat once yet, and in fact you have more of an issue of trying to keep the boat in the water, and there's a lot of footage out from the windy day of boats flying out of the water out of control. And it's just as simple as just spending more time on the boat and learning what it can do. And everyone thinks that it's becoming harder with all this foiling, but I disagree. I think it's just becoming more exciting and more fun, and once people have sailed the boats for say a month, they'll learn what they should and shouldn't be doing with the boats. And the price is is inherently expensive in an A class. You know, we've got Nomex carbon boats, and you know, I believe these boats are much cheaper than what a D&A is. But you know, at the end of the day, it's a development class, just like the Moth is, and you can spend as much or as little as you want to on the boats. And you know, I think it's great that some of the Cup guys are getting involved and spending some of their money to develop the boats to then make it cheaper for everyone else. And you don't have to buy a foiling boat and race, but you know, at the end of the day, sailing is a bit of an expensive sport, and you know, all we're trying to do is you know, spend the money and learn what we can, so that others can then copy and have as much enjoyment as what we're having.